Hello and welcome. Today we are going to go through some ruler and compass geometric constructions and analysis of anomalous phenomena like body marks and the Pheonix lights. If you're not familiar with the Pheonix lights, I'd love to just give you a quick tour as to what they are. So this is one of the more favorite videos I have of the Pheonix lights, primarily because the videographer, the filmer here says, "Oh my God, this is geometry." And as you'll see in this video, these lights, which appeared over Pheonix on March 13th, 1997, they appeared and sort of this guy captures it. It's really beautiful. He says, "Oh my God, there's geometry, there's geometry." And as you'll see, there is actual geometry. We'll keep coming back to this video throughout the entire presentation because it will reveal aspects of geometry that are informative and definitive. Definitive in a way that stands outside of empirical testing. So if we can demonstrate that each of these images over the next, the 2 minutes of video are congruent with one another geometrically, not looking at how fast they might be falling, but as geometric objects in and of themselves, we can say a priori, meaning that if there's geometry expressed over 3 minutes that is congruent with itself and congruent with 3 other views of that geometry, we're dealing with a geometric and not necessarily a physical object at this point, even though it is manifesting physically. I want to just walk through some of the phenomena that we're going to talk about, where this comes from. I mean, we have these videos. Some of these are pretty fuzzy. This is another view of the same phenomena happening. And again, you can see how once you stabilize this footage, you can see that these are absolutely geometric. They haven't moved throughout the experience, right? I'm scanning forward and backwards. They blink in and out, as you can see, but they're not actually drifting down. They're not actually sort of expressive of gravity. They are extremely consistent in terms of their presentation. Thousands of people saw this, and in fact, thousands of other people enjoy debunking this experience by saying these were something like flares from A10 warthogs. And I would challenge anyone who puts forward that notion to really provide footage of geometrically precise, geometrically meaningful, and geometrically creative expressions of these flares that do not move relative to one another, as recorded by 4 videos over about 4 minutes. This is extremely incredible level of precision that's happening here. And that's all I'm talking about. I'm going to just talk about the level of geometric precision in this experience, because we're going to go through and do ruler and compass geometry. And I should show you actually why we're going on this rather lengthy journey together. And let me do that by bringing up another screen. This is sitting here in front of me. You might recognize this from the Tom King's video. And I've drawn a lot of circles on top of this. And I've written some funny letters, like this letter here, which you might recognize as Phi, P-H-I, which is the Greek letter that stands in for the golden ratio. And if I'm marking golden ratio on here, that means this potentially a geometric communication. This is a relatively simple and elegant diagram. It is mirrored in the films, the photography by Dr. Lynne, which we'll see very shortly. But I just wanted to show you, right, these are geometric objects. These are not necessarily physical objects that we're talking about and analyzing right now. We're looking at geometry in this video today. So let's get back to the screen. As you remember, right, this is coming from the geometry that I showed you, and we'll walk through that together. The final thing I want to show you in terms of video actually is the split screen Pheonix light. So this takes 4 of the 5 people who have photographed these Pheonix lights from different angles, right? Tom King put this together. This is really, really beautiful. And let's just scan forward to see, hey, actually, we're seeing geometric precision, geometric precision. When we do congruence testing on these images, we can then use this experience of looking at the split screen and seeing the immense coherence, the geometric coherence expressed through these 4 different views all at once. And so we can really dive deeply into understanding that these are coherent by relying upon this split screen video. We're seeing this now physically with our eyes. And you can then remember back when we do ruler and compass geometric testing to say, does this construction fit the Pheonix light? If so, then it fits all of this footage. And that's really important to understand. And that at this point, when we've bridged this coherent footage, which is not yet interpreted geometrically, but is identified as geometry at this point, it's not yet interpreted, we can go, oh wow, actually this really does apply to all of the geometry. And at this point, having such immense geometric coherence now described in terms of the actual mathematics and geometry behind it, we can then say that this perhaps is a message that we can decode, or that this brings this phenomena up and out of the capacity to be debunked by the flare narrative, right? And it really does beg the question, who is making this geometry and why? And this is the question that I would invite you to answer for yourself. And that's really important because we are now dealing with the ethics and epistemology, I say, of dreams rather than of mathematics. And this is a little bit of a journey to get there. Before we do, let me just point out ufovideo.com. Tom King's got a bunch of great videos about this phenomenon. The Oracle of the Pheonix has scientific documentation of the various perspectives, as well as pheonixlight.net has Dr. Lynne's photography as well as video, and a missing time story that is actually one of the most interesting missing time cases because it involves concurrent documentation of the UAP. This is an extremely rare case. I know of it in at least one other case. And so that's why I actually started looking into this, is because of the missing time component of these experiences. I had dream experiences. I had anomalous experiences with geometry that reminded me of this experience that brought me here to this moment. But before we do, we need to cover the ground and the foundation of what we're doing so that you understand we're not doing math necessarily. We're doing something like mysticism. And the reason why I say that is we look to this scholarly paper published in the Journal of the Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology. The author here puts forward the notion and the history of mysticism in mathematics. And we'll just scan this. We have Greece, we've got Euclid, we've got Plato, these Pythagoras, Thales. These are foundational guys in terms of our understanding of mathematics. Close to my heart, we have Dr. John Dee, who brought Euclid to England. He understood this to be magical, and mystical, not necessarily strictly mathematical. We've got Kepler, Galileo, and Descartes. You may realize we live in a Cartesian worldview. This is coming from Descartes, who had dreams that inspired this new philosophy, this new geometry. And I'm saying that actually this series of geometry that I am unfolding for you came to me through a series of dreams that I want to talk about. But it's really very important to understand that we are doing both mathematics as understood within the mainstream Western mathematics, as well as something like mysticism. The way I understand this is that we are working with a transpersonal ritual of epistemology, meaning we are going through a process where you will have a moment where you don't understand why I'm drawing circles, you don't understand how these things add up, and then all of a sudden you experience what is commonly termed an aha moment. Aha, I get it. This is called geometric intuition. No matter how much mathematicians would love to, or scientists would love to have a repeatable system, the intuition of geometry actually is a movement of the whole being, the body, the mind, the heart of the person, not just the intellect. And that aha moment can come about because you're doing meditation, you're contemplating on beautiful imagery, you're creative with it, you're dreaming about it. And that's really important. This is why I'm showing you this long history of mysticism in mathematics, because that's what we're about. We are yearning for that aha moment. We have the presentation of anomalous geometry. We need to describe it and understand it. See, is it a signal? Can we gain information about whatever? But we need an aha moment as to what that geometry is. What that geometry is. And we need that aha moment as a people, because half of our collective is saying that these are something like a military operation above a civilian area of letting out flares from A-10 warthogs. And this is a rather offensive narrative given the elegance and beauty of the geometry. And it is rather offensive that this communication has gone on for so long. And I would say that at this point, after this demonstration of elegant, creative, beautiful geometry that is deeply associated with dreams, that we need to bring this dialogue now into the ethics and epistemology of dream work, rather than relying on the ethics and epistemology of materialist science that has not yet produced a solution or an understanding of this incredible phenomenon since 1997. So let's turn to see what that ethics and epistemology is that is more appropriate to this geometric dialogue than the ethics and epistemology of materialist and consumerist and military-based science, right? So let's turn to the International Association of the Study of Dreams to see what are their ethical guidelines for working with dreams. Because if there is a tie between our very mathematics, the core of our mathematics and dreams, turn to Euclid, turn to Plato, turn to John Dee, turn to Descartes, turn to Ramanujan, turn to Niels Bohr, turn to Pythagoras, turn to Mendeleev, to see that there is, then we have to be applying this dreamwork ethic to our work together. And what is this? Well, we have to work with the assignment of authority. What does that mean? That means that the significance of the dream, in this case, the significance of the geometry, is determined in part, and the final authority of that significance actually is the dreamer. So in the case you have a dream, the person who gets to say, is that meaningful, is that not, and how is that meaningful, is the experiencer. It's not the expert. And that's what this is saying, right? We are saying that we have to be concerned about projection in dream work. That means I have an idea about your dreams because I interpret things and project things outside of myself. Perhaps I'm thinking about my relationship. You're not thinking about your relationship. I say, hey, your dream's about relationship because I'm thinking about that. That's one of the things to keep in mind. We have to respect the dreamer, the importance of personal dream work. And I would call this out to anyone who's offering debunking experiences around this. You actually are invited to participate in this dialogue, in this unfolding of meaning in relationship to these anomalous geometries. You can engage in that through many different modes, and that can be creative exploration, that can be intellectual inquiry. Whatever that is, please engage in your own personal dream work. Not just focus on this one case in 1997, but the dream you had last night or the dream you'll have tonight. And if you need to have dreams, simply take a moment, take a breath, and say, yes, I'm willing to open my dreams to the source of geometric inspiration in these lights and in the history of Western mathematics, right? And just say yes to that and see what comes up. The final thing I want to talk about in terms of the ethics and epistemology is this understanding that dreams are multidimensional, um, that there is capacity to interpret and reinterpret the dream experience. And so I'm offering one interpretation of the Pheonix lights that's based in ruler and compass geometry. This is, I would say, a definitive, at some point, interpretation of the experience, primarily because it defines it at one level, at an a priori level, at the world of mind and form. This is actually sort of generic and doesn't interpret the actual phenomena for these people. I'm saying, hey, there's geometry present. We're seeing it. This is what the geometry is. Personally, I don't understand exactly what that geometry is or what it signifies in terms of coded meaning or something like that. I'm simply describing this in terms of ruler and compass constructions. Right. So we have covered a lot, and so far, and I just want to, bring this into why I'm talking about dreams a little bit more now. So I had an interesting phenomena happen in June 2022. I had this mark on my body. So this showed up while I was writing a book about missing time. So it's an irony, right? So I finished my draft of Missing Time Found, a new and old hypothesis regarding UAP-associated missing time. Basically, I say it's something like a quantum dream field that retrocausally goes back and forward. When we apply the practice of shamanic dreamwork to the missing time experience, something happens ontologically in that expression. And so that night I received this mark on my body. I discovered it in ways. I said, this is extremely regular, extremely geometric. What does this mean? I don't know. I can't interpret it. I don't know enough geometry. Right? But actually, 6 months later to the day, I had a dream series where dream characters came to me and said, hey, you want to work for the benefit of your culture. You want to change this world for the better. Why don't you work with us? And they instructed me in ruler and compass geometry. And I'll instruct you on that very shortly. To decode crop circles, anomalous body marks, and UAP sighting pulsations and things like that. I have a lot of information on my YouTube channel, a lot of information on D-SETI.org. That stands for the Dream Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, or the Dream Studies of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, depending on whether you believe we are searching or studying extraterrestrial intelligence. So I decoded this through assistance of my dreams. This is why I'm bringing this into the ethics and epistemology of dream work, not just mathematics. This is why I'm saying you need to participate in this experience, because these dream people came to me, instructed me in geometry, and I was able to get understanding as to what this marking was or is. Interestingly enough, I found another one, right? This is a mark on the body that I've offered a congruence test to. I've drawn this ruler and compass construction of this marking and overlaid it on top, proving it is a geometric object in addition to an anomalous body mark. At this point, it's really important to understand that none of the experiencers I'm looking at consider these to be harmful or even a violation of will. Many of them are engaged in something like CE5 or human-initiated contact. Many of them have dreams of extraterrestrial beings or non-human intelligences that are not necessarily concerning to them. They are highly strange. There's an intensity of emotion and physical feeling, but there isn't the same fear quality that I experienced when I was researching alien abduction in the 90s. So that's really important to understand. So here's, I offer how to draw it here. This is, it creates a kind of quizzical sort of language that I'm not understanding here as to what's going on geometrically. I'm just describing it, and I'm showing you can construct it using very, very simple methods. And that's what's at play here. Wonderful. So as geometry, right, we'll go back to the geometry scene. As geometry, we need to now go through the beginning of a ritual, right? So we're talking about mysticism and mathematics. So we now need to go through a ritual together to make this circle experience of the Pheonix lights, to make this meaningful to you, right? This is a magic glyph that is not yet meaningful or potent to you. So we have to work together to do this. And I will actually create space for us, create sacred and safe space for us by invoking the directions, by invoking the non-physical aspects of my own personal spiritual lineage, to create this space so that we can do this transpersonal epistemological ritual together. The way I'll do that is by quoting from the Book of Galactic Light. This is a transcription of an angelic communication ritual I did based on the work of Dr. John Dee, who, if you were observant, was listed in the Renaissance section of the Mysticism in Mathematics paper. He is the man that brought Euclid to the English-speaking world. He produced a compass called the paradoxical compass that he would instruct the early voyages of discovery to use to navigate to the New World. He is an architect of our modern English-speaking colonialistic world, and he engaged in angelic communication and had angelic communication. I used his rituals to produce this Book of Galactic Light. It's about 400 pages, and I invite you to read that if you're so called to. But the reason why I'm bringing this in is because this one book, for me personally, ties me to a long string of history, this mysticism and mathematics tied together in an ongoing dialogue with non-human intelligences. Dr. Dee called them angels. Plato and Socrates may have called them daemons. This is not demons. This is daemons. Daemon with the A generally signifies something of the demonic realities. This is intermediary. Intermediary between what? Well, the world of here and now and the world of forms, this perfect world where geometry lives. So I'm just going to simply read the prayer of invocation at this point. It's going to be long, and that's fine, because this geometry is going to be long. This is a rather strange inquiry. I would invite anyone who's watching this to use a video speed controller, by the way, to speed up, to skip backwards and forwards, because we are going to use our patience, we're going to use our meditation skills to go through and actually have this ritual unfold for us. I connect with the white light of my highest self, pure source love. I call in the galactic energies from the grand central sun, through our sun into my head, flowing down through my heart, through my root, into the center of the earth. I invite the white light to rise up from the center of the earth, to my root, up through my heart, to the top of my head. I acknowledge the directions, east, south, west, north, sky, earth, and heart. I invite the white light to form a sphere of protection around me and my human family. I acknowledge my vows to be of service to others in alignment with the principle of non-harm and the cosmic law of one. I pray that all my actions and their effects be in alignment with these principles and vows, with the highest and best intention for the benefit of all beings. Let any impurity or error in this ritual be transmuted into perfection and into the accomplishment of this prayer. I make my prayers in the center of the great web of life. I call in my wise and well ancestors, my guides, teachers, and allies. I call in all my relations to assist, guide, and amplify my prayers here and now. I call in my galactic lineages, Pleiades, Orion, Alpha Centauri, Vega, Andromeda, Zeta, Yael, and all the others, calling upon the galactic federations of light, the galactic star councils, the lords of time, karma, and synchronicity, and those who may accomplish this prayer here and now. I call upon my earthly lineages, my mother and father lines, the lands of my blood, of Europe and of North America, and all the forgotten places. Thus I call upon all the earth human family. I call upon the spirits, lineages, and powers of my religions and cultures, of the Christian faith and the Shambhala Buddhist practices. I call forth the new earth avatars of the Christ and the Buddha, us, the human family. I pray for the new earth. I invoke the harvest. Let the empires be dissolved. Let the instruments of war be repurposed. Let the tools of enslavement be released. Let peace, love, joy, and creativity reign. Let us recognize that the golden age has dawned. I claim my status as lineage holder, as prophet, priest, and mage. I, prophet of New Babylon. I, priest of Asclepius. I, voice of the mage of the shattered mirror, thrice remembered and thrice born, here now claim all power and energy available for the accomplishment of this prayer. Let this action transmute all history of violence, aggression, and service to self into the embodiment of peace, love, and unity consciousness. I claim the ancestral blood magics of those who have gone before. I call upon the power of all the blood shed in empire. Let no more blood be shed for magic and empire. Let no more blood be shed at all. Let the old systems of magic, those of money and control and empire, be banished. Let the power of the new earth arise, love and respect of self and others. Let all those who have suffered in empire be healed. Let all be initiated into the deepest and highest mysteries. Let all discover the magic of love through the direct experience of the integration of light and dark into the lived history of our human family. Let us be aware that life is a dream of our own making, so that we may choose peace, light, and love. Let us forgive the agents of empire and the perpetrators of our suffering. Let us love them as ourselves. We, the one human family on earth, declare ourselves sovereign and free. We declare our basic dignity and goodness. We raise ourselves up into celestial community. Let all earth humans share equal rights, and let us see our true place within the earth family. Let these basic human rights include freedom, healthcare, education, and equal share in the abundance of our earth and our collective industries. Let the military-industrial complex, the dark and covert councils, and the corruption of the false governments be dissolved through only the loving actions of forgiveness and acceptance. Let our governments and collective systems truly serve the people and all our relations, including the animals, plants, rocks, spirits, and all the earthly expressions of divinity. Let our science, industry, medicine, education, religion, and culture truly be of service to the empowerment and embodiment of the divine spark within humanity. We, the human family, declare that we let go of war, aggression, and materialism so that we now enter our rightful place in our galactic community. I call for the transmutation of empire into golden age. I call forth the beauty, love, and creativity of the earth human spirit. We are no longer slaves. We now live in the promised land. This is now the new earth. We now join the celestial family. This is now the golden age. I pray that my family enjoys peace, love, good health, and prosperity. May our children grow in light and love. May all those touched by this work be blessed. May these actions be of benefit to all sentient beings in accordance with the principle of non-harm and the cosmic law of one. Let's begin. Thank you. So, this is what I'm calling for. This is what I believe. This is what I believe is being called for in the presentation of anomalous geometric lights in Phoenix, Arizona, 1997. This is what I believe is possible when we engage in this epistemological, transpersonal ritual of communion with that geometry, because that brings a deep integration with the source of that geometry in ways that are inexplicable through the words, but you can feel and sense and know true for yourself in the way that you know a big dream is big for you. So I want to now start with a little bit of instruction around what ruler and compass geometry is. So let's start actually by going back to this marking. So I am going to talk about body marks because they're anomalous. I had this experience myself. And then this mark came up. I said, oh my gosh, that's dots in a line. Let's interpret it. Then I saw this one and I thought, huh, this feels like an abstraction of everything. I wonder what sort of geometry is present. So I generally will blow that up. I'll screenshot it, and then I bring it into GIMP, the graphical image manipulation program. I'll just walk you back through what I did. So this is what I printed out. That was, I adjusted the levels to make this much more Control Y and Control C. Great. So I did that. And then that's to make it more contrasty so I can see. As you can see, I'm not really changing the shape. I'm just changing how it'll print out. That's the image color. Make it desaturated, change the levels. I print it out. That's pretty much it in terms of the image manipulation. The same thing goes on with the Pheonix lights. That's it. So now we can go to the geometry. Here's the dot. I'm going to fumble a bit with papers. Like I said, that's fine. Here's the interpretation of the dot. Here is the golden ratio construction. This is the construction. We're going to walk through this so you understand what I'm doing. And then we're going to do what I call congruence testing, which means I'm taking the thing I printed out and I'm putting it next to it. Sometimes I'll overlay it so you can actually see it. I do this on the computer. It's hard to do in physical paper without tracing paper or a light box. But that's really important to understand what we're doing. So I'm going to draw on this using ruler and compass. And let's actually just start. The postulates of Euclid. So Euclid is the Greek mathematician geometer who made what's called Euclidean geometry. This is the foundation for all of our geometry, all of our mathematics, even though at times we go beyond Euclidean geometry into non-Euclidean geometry. It starts with postulates, meaning these are statements of intellectual claim, like let it be granted that I can draw a dot. Let it be granted I can extend that dot in a dimension to create a line. Let it be granted I can draw a circle of any radius. So I'm drawing a dot now here, and then I want to, that's one of the postulates, straight edge. Everything I'm doing will relate back to these fundamental activities. Circle. And so one of the things that's cool about this is I can test, is this radius equal to this radius? And I can actually see, yes, indeed it is. Likewise, I can draw a different circle in this situation and build what's a figure called a vesica Pisces. But I can also test, is this radius equal to this radius? And I go, yes, it is, because we know radii are equal. We know that, but we need to go through and test it. Here I'm going to build a perpendicular line to the original line. And then I'll say, is that radius equal? And I go, no, that radius isn't equal, because I can see, is this to here equal to the original radius? No, it's not, because I'm drawing here, but I'm testing, right? The ruler gives a test of equality. And the reason why I'm doing this and taking my time here is because we are doing a transpersonal epistemological ritual. I'm not giving you answers to a multiple choice question test like we were trained in school. I'm training you to see this tool, this compass, as a magic tool. This as a magical glyph that brings us into communion with the sources of geometry, let's say, or the intelligence of geometry. And so we're doing magic together, not math per se. That's why I'm taking time to do this. The other thing you need to know about actually is the golden ratio. So golden ratio, I'll take this and I will draw this line. And so the golden ratio, well, we'll just get there because I'm going to draw it out. Right, so I've drawn about 3 circles, 3 lines, and now I have this original radius right here segmented in the golden ratio. How do I know this? Well, I'm doing the construction for it. Someone else proved that this construction method produces golden ratio. But I also have another tool I call the golden ratio. These are called the golden ratio calipers. These move backwards and forwards. These tines move backwards and forwards in the golden ratio. And then I can actually just test, is that golden ratio? Are my calipers good? Yes, they are. So we'll use this to test and say, hey, is there golden ratio in here? This is one of my tools of analysis. So now at this point, we have enough vocabulary to build this thing and make sense of it. The first step I do in any of these interpretations is find a straight horizon line, right? So let's see, how does this work? I will draw straight through, kind of aiming for the center of these circles, right? So now I'm going to bisect this line because I know I've looked at this and I've said, hey, this actually, right, isn't that interesting? This is the clue. This is the clue. And then say, how does that actually work in terms of, there has to be a mathematical significance somewhere, and it has to be kind of coherent for me. And then I go, oh, actually, this looks like this dot here looks like a bisection here. So now we have 2 mathematical principles kind of at play. We've got golden ratio. The diameter of this dot is to this dot as both of the diameters are, as this dot is to both of the diameters, right? So that's the golden ratio. And then I start, expanding this. I go, that kind of actually looks like the golden ratio in there, and this looks like a bisection. So let's actually start with that. So I'm placing the center of my compass on one side here, and please note how the geometric significance is being expressed at not the center of this dot, but the side of the dot, right? That's a language. That's part of the language. So I'm just going to draw this circle, and I'm going to draw this circle. And then I'm going to bisect that line. So now we have that bisection. The clue I have, here, right? So we are going to now, working off of this diagram actually, is taking this and building another Vesica Pisces on this situation. So this will now test for that bisection idea. So that's the bisection point. The next thing we need to do in this experience, right? So we are, and that goes there. We're just applying that test. So actually we need to then, right? So now we have the golden ratio dividing this radius here. So that gives us a point of coherence that's much clearer than here. So I say that's actually one of the tools here. I'm going to say now actually this dot, more or less in my mind, at least when we're working with the interval, here I'm close. I'm really close to the experience. And then we draw this circle on top of it. Here we've got another dot, which I want to work with. In this case, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Right, build the Vesica Pisces. Build the Vesica Pisces. Divide that line, right? start to observe what this actually looks like, because this is going to be a clue. And then I can, now the task here is to divide more or less this line by golden ratio, it looks like in my diagram. So let's go ahead and do that. We go. Oh, that's nice. And then that one goes straight through that center. I think we need to actually work with clearing out this gap here and this gap here, which is what I did, took my time with that here. But we actually are now building something like the construction. We could print it out again and get closer. I could also build, so what I do sometimes is I take this construction and then I use this diameter to build the rest of it. And we can go through and do that. That's what we did here, and that's what happened here. There's another video that I walk through with that. I'll let you do, because we need to keep going on, because this is one clue, but it's only one of the clues. I want to walk through a couple others. Right, so this now comes from the same experiencer that I analyzed right before. I have a full video of doing these constructions. So the same experiencer, you already saw the image, but as you note, there's a couple of weird things going on with this line. There's an angle here. That's hard to understand in context of dot and a line, and I really wanted to smush them down because I love the acronym dot and a line. Dial is sort of clever, but these are actually angles. And so how are these defined? Well, there's a couple of things where we have 3 points here that are clearly expressive of golden ratio, right? Clearly expressive of golden ratio here. But then there's a dot up here, there's a dot right here, and there's a dot just floating somewhere here. When we tune into the actual line, we find that this dot and this dot are placed in a meaningful placement. The circle, the center of the circle is placed where the circumference of the circle would be. So we draw one circle here and then move it up a radius, basically. Same thing happens here. But then this dot is placed by being on the major circle used to draw the Vesica Piscis to bisect this line, right? It's placed there, but when you place this dot in golden ratio to the radius, right, above this line, and this is really important. It blows my mind. It took me forever to figure out, but I go, oh, they're not, the circle, the center of the circle isn't the point of intersection. There's a million different points. It can be the top, bottom, left, right, that sort of thing. And it's just there. And then this line, the center of this diagram, to the topmost part of that circle draws a line to here. And this is characteristic of a couple other body marks in the Tom King video. So I keep pointing that out because you need to understand that this is the language of the Pheonix lights. This is the language of the Dawson line body mark. This is why I'm saying they are one and the same or two sides of the same coin rather than anything else. Geometrically, I'm just saying geometrically. I don't actually fully understand how that unfolds, but that's really important. This is a really important diagram. I want to show you one more when we go back to screen. One more body mark before we begin. So this is the ruler and compass construction of my own body mark. As you can see, golden ratio is present and things like that. The one I wanted to show you is this one. This gave me a clue because it is very, very, very consistent. So let me just pull this up actually. with my geometry screen. So we've got the body marks laid out. As you can see, extremely clear up here. I drew the line, and then there's these two dots that are sort of floating. And this dot actually floats in comparison with where the circles could be drawn, the circles. I'm just pointing out bisection here is happening. I'm drawing circles between the major intervals, and then I'm bisecting them until I get a whole number ratio between the unity radius and the radius of the dots. The green circles here are like the extension of the red circles into the golden ratio, basically. And this is the language. This sort of dot next to the line is the language. Is one of the components of language here. We saw that here, and we saw that here, and then this actually takes that a little bit further in that body mark. I'm just looking through my papers to see if there's anything else I wanted to show you. Yes, there is. Yes, there is. This you'll recognize that from my own dot in a line. This is the ruler and compass construction. It gives you all the clues. I'm just showing this so you can pause the video, zoom in and look. I'm happy to share better photos too. This is another one, very similar extension of golden ratio kind of thing happening, whole number ratios. This is a working file for me to figure out my own body mark. And then here is another one. By the way, all of these images are shared to me on Reddit or through public sources or are publicly available. So I'm using everything under the fair use idea. And I've asked for permission in cases where it makes sense. So this is coming from an experiencer who had dots in a line here, who said, hey, these remind me of something. And it's like the Giza pyramids, the Belt and Orion. And I just drew the same marks on each of those to illuminate how close of a match that is. And it's pretty close in my mind. So we've covered all the body marks. Covered all of the body marks I wanted to. We've gone through charging up these tools so we can now really work with the Pheonix lights. So let's just get back into Pheonix lights a bit. Let's go here. Such an interesting story, right? So this comes from Dr. Lynne Kitty. Dr. Lynne took photos, I believe, of these mountain ranges, had a series of photographs, thought 5 minutes passed. In analysis of the photographs says, hey, like 3 hours passed, you have missing time. This is why I was looking into Dr. Lynne's case. I knew about the Pheonix lights. I didn't realize how geometric they were. I realized, I heard they might be flares. And then I started actually analyzing the geometry, and I said, hey, actually, you know, the two dot on the line and the other one reminded me so much of something. I needed to go looking for it, and I remember the Pheonix lights and saw all of these, and I said, these are dots in a line. And I wanted just to start working with this image, 3 unexplained orbs over Pheonix. And this is not Pheonix lights, but this is showing that the geometry is present within a variety of different places. Like I showed you, I take it into this situation. I just do simple stuff to bring it so you can actually analyze it, and then I'll print it out. So let's get back to it. We've got this going on here. We've got this as the clue. You'll recognize the vesica Pisces already. You'll recognize this sort of X as golden ratio. And so let's just sort of work on it together so you have a sense as to how that might unfold. Right, right? So we are now, I'm going to draw a line through the center of this circle and this circle. Isn't it interesting how that circle sits on this line? It's not through the center of that circle, it sits on this line. So now I'm going to say that we're going to bisect. Where to bisect it? Well, let's just actually go from biggest to biggest. And it's really easy to do that because you draw on the line the last point that has color or whatever. I'm building the radius of this circle, and I'm drawing the sacred geometric form, the Vesica Pisces, out of which all the other geometries emerge, right? And then I'm going to bisect this line, and lo and behold, that center point touches the kind of saucer part of this orb or whatever that is. I actually think this is going to reveal this difference between the dark circle and the halo is going to be golden ratio, but we're not going to do that quite yet. All right, so the next step is to start figuring out what's going on actually here. And as you can see, this line, this point is golden ratio. So let's draw that in now because that's our clue. I like drawing the circles in and I like drawing the figures in because I think they actually know someone's going to do this. And that meaning is going to emerge from it. Now that we've got this experience, we can do the division by golden ratio. I draw both of them in sometimes because that gives me a sense of cohesion. So that's pretty close. So then we also have to figure out like how is this working? What's going on here? I think it's actually so check that out. In this diagram, I've bisected this radius, and then I've drawn golden ratio in the bisection. So let's give that a shot. Sometimes these work out, sometimes these don't in terms of my actual interpretation. That's why, in part, it's important to do it yourself and to keep doing it a couple of times. So now I've bisected that line. This, to me, actually, right, so look at that. Look at that. That looks pretty close. So let's go ahead and divide this radius into golden ratio. See what that looks like. Perfect. So now that we have those lines in play, we can do that. We can do this. And look, there's that intersection point again, right there. Right there. It's matching. So now we have one more intersection point to figure out. Right. And that looks to me to be, once again, very similar expression. Very similar expression. So we've got the radius here. This has been bisected. So let's actually go ahead, do that work, because that's helpful. So we've got that circle going on, and now we have to draw this circle so that we can bisect that original radius, right? Now that we have that experience going on, actually, that circle and this circle, and then how does that work? We pull that out to there. So then we can divide this radius by golden ratio, and you can see it's touching the same aura spot on all of these. This is how, at least this interval, right? If we look at drawing dashes on a line, dashes on a line, this is what it looks like. This is how you would do it. It's very, very coherent and consistent. In terms of the analysis, I need to understand personally how this circle versus the flat bit, how that relates. It's obviously golden ratio. I need to zoom in. I haven't done that yet, but I just wanted to show this as one of many kind of bridging examples from dots in a line, showing you the geometric language, and then the culmination will be Tom King's video, actually, because it's exquisite in terms of that. Here's one, again from Dr. Lynne's experience. Actually, at this point, I want to show off too. This is from one of the other videos, and this is showing once again this sort of language of dots next to the circle, next to the intersection point. This is really elegant because this one on the right side has golden ratio, and you can actually start to see it. You see the gap? In the gap. You can identify this oftentimes in the images because you'll have a regular interval, right, as marked by this bisection point, right? You can see that here. And then you have a bigger gap, and then something similar to these intervals. That is golden ratio. And if you're interested in this, just buy yourself a tool. They're really wonderful to work with and go, oh, that is golden ratio, right? You can see that when I'm starting to draw these lines. Right, so now we've got two lines, two dots in a line, which means we've got dots in a line in a triangle. I'm going to just run through this relatively quickly so that we can get to Tom's video as well. So again, drawing the lines. I say actually, based on that insight, right, that from where we were, that we'll start by drawing the circle like we have, again, from the farthest edge to the other edge. Right, let's do that, and then we got the points we need. We got all the points we need. I have to geometries. Go like this, and go like this, and it's really delightful to be doing this as opposed to seeing the diagrams, because right, I don't actually know if these will line up when I do the analysis, and then when something like that happens where it intersects in like where there's such a beautiful tangenting that happens, I go, oh, ooh, that's absolutely meaningful, right? So now we've got to figure out what other lines are we going to draw on this figure, right? We go, is this golden ratio? That's close. Is this golden ratio? That's close, but not quite. Close, but not quite, right? Like we could actually start to see golden ratio here. And this is one of the things I love. I love how that works out is, oh, this big dot is determined by golden ratio of something that's clear in this geometric drawing. We have to continue. We'll just continue our practice of bisection, which is expressive of symmetry, which is expressive of awareness of a lot in terms of geometry. As you can see, this is sort of like what's going on. Let's see. I need to actually sort of like that. That to that, that to that, perfect. So I had a little bit of compass movement, so I brought that back. I'm going to redraw this circle. You can see it sort of there. I'm going to redraw this circle. So now we have that experience. We've got two vesica Pisces nested in a big vesica Pisces. We also, if you're clever, you can see the golden ratio divisions in these by looking at the intersect. This is a golden ratio construction, but actually we will use the bisection tool here so that we can now see actually this dot is down to the right of that intersection point. This dot is to the up and right. This is meaningful even though we don't have a full sense as to what or how. Like what does that mean? What does this mean? This is language because of its clear and direct relationship with this revealed point of geometric coherence. That's what the diagrams are doing. That it's sort of like giving meaning to this because it's implicit in the geometric expression, right? So the last thing we need to do up here is to draw the figuring out of how big this dot is, right? And so I thought, wow, actually, golden ratio right there. So let's go ahead and do that. How do we do that? Well, we bisect that bisection point yet again, right? This is in part the geometric language of these marks, of the Pheonix lights. Perfect. So then we can go like this. All right. Actually, we needed to do this. And then we go like this. Perfect. So then we already have a lot of the intersection points we need. So I'm just going to actually connect all of these lines because this line is going to be really important. And you see how I drew that? This defines the golden ratio between as A is to B, so is B to the whole distance. And that's a radius that is implied from the geometric points of these bisections. That's implied through the radius here. So we're now having a meaningful size of this dot to this whole figure. This is meaningful because it stands in golden ratio. It's the division of, let's say that's 1/2 quarter. It's a division of a quarter of that radius. And then as I draw this line out, it's really interesting, right? Because as you see, I'm going to take this thing and move it simply, right? This is the clue. I'm not yet there in terms of fully understanding how to place this dot, but if I take this intersection point and I line it up with this, the side of this dot, right? And I extend it down here, it hits this intersection point. So then we actually have to figure out how far away is this line to the whole thing. And I think it's actually golden ratio, right? So check that out. So I take the golden ratio of the entire line, right, with this side, and then I'm holding it with my hands, which is a mechanical skill in and of itself to be able to do this. But let me show you, right? So there, and then I'm moving that, and then I go, oh my gosh, that's close enough that I say there's actual meaning here. And we would then have to, so now that we have the orientation of this line based on here and the placement of this line, we would then use our compass, right, to take that, right, extend this whole vesica Pisces line, and then we would divide this like we have. The whole figure would be about the size of my desk. So I just wanted to reveal that to you there, as well as reveal that, right, like we can now start to say, hey, is this similar? Yes, it's similar. Is this similar? Yes, it's similar, right, between the dots. So this is that construction. like I said, I won't finish the placement of this dot because it's implicit within all the lines, and you know enough already to be able to do that, which is wonderful. So that's it for Dr. Lynne's. That's it for Dr. Lynne's beautiful, beautiful footage right now. There's a lot more I've tested. Let's get back to the screen. I've tested it, right? I've tested it. The next thing I want to do is talk about congruence testing. Next thing I want to do is talk about congruence testing because one of the situations, they say these are flares. They say these are flares, and I go, okay, that they might be flares, but let's actually start doing a bit of congruence testing. And I've already done this, so I'm going to say I need to know, is this a geometric object in time over the whole time or not, right? If it's not, then I have to start thinking about, okay, let's take how do you determine geometry over time, right? Snapshot's really easy, right? So the question I have in my mind is this a physical object moving and floating that somehow coalesced into geometry and then moved and moved and moved? And you'll see that actually with Starlink satellites. They have a pulsation of golden ratio, but they also don't, and they move backwards and forwards, and the moments of geometric coherence are fewer and far further between. So I'm going to do a really simple test, right? So we can see, right, these dots sort of showing up and then showing up in a line, right? So here I'm saying is 2 minutes 58 seconds, right? And then it's held throughout this whole time and disappears over time. So if I can actually snag this image, I'm going to take snipping tool. As you see, I already have one from before, which I brought into here. I am going to, do something like that. I'm going to new layer. So we're going to see, can we match all of the dots on top of this? And if we can, we will know that the dots did not move relative to each other over the duration of the video, which is a significant finding in and of itself. So let's just go, oops. Let's actually back up to there. Okay. So this is about 18 seconds before the thing you saw, snipping tool. Take snipping tool, right? So then I'm going to copy that. I'm going to create a new layer. I am going to drop in these 3 dots. They kind of look like, I bet you can figure out where they are coming from, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to select by color, and I need to actually create that to a new layer. I need to edit select by color, click that, I delete that, and now I can take these and I can move them around. Hang on. How did I do this before? Select by color, I move the threshold kind of up, and I'm going to select the lights actually. I think that's how I'm going to do. Threshold. Oh, I need to move the threshold down. Great, so that actually will get me the dots. Let's actually color vert. Let's actually bring this down some more. Let's zoom in. Okay, so that gives me some of the dots. I can copy them. I can hide this whole situation. And I can create a new layer. And I can paste those dots. Something isn't working right. I am canceling that. Select none. By color. Click that. Somehow. Here, there we go. Copy. So then I go paste. Paste. File. To new layer. Oh, good. Okay, so then I can move those dots. So now I have those dots. I don't need the original image, right? So this is called congruence testing. And so now if I do the tools of scale, I should be able to scale it down to the right size, right? I'll move it this way. You go, oh, that's close. Let's just, is it there? Scale, scale. What's going on here? And I go, actually, my hypothesis that those two dots are the same are not. It's those two dots, right? So I need to bring that in, and we are going to go through and do a congruence test, which is dropping these onto there. So this is 18 seconds apart, at least, and it's so coherent you can't see it. And if we do it one more time throughout the video, this should be a good spot check for you, right? So I don't know, maybe we should do that one. Why not? Because we have other dots, other situation, right? This is 404. So let's go back here. This is important. And so now I'm going to have new layer. I'm going to hit paste. I'm going to hit paste. I am going to select by color. I'm going to pick those up. Oh, I have to new layer, select by color, copy those, hide this, new layer, okay, paste those. Now I have the capacity to say, okay, where, all right, so that will give us that dot. Okay, so we are very, very close already. Oh my God. Right, so how close can we get it? Scale. Right, like this will give us a sense of movement, right? And how far these actually move. Isn't it just incredible that they are so close? Yes. And so I sort of just mess with this using only the scale and rotate transforms and the move to actually get the sense of, okay, so that's, we need to bring that in some more to really go, hey, actually there's movement of the camera, but is this actually movement of the object or not? And in my mind, actually, right, I don't think I can draw this coherently, right? Okay, so that's, in my mind, this is close to a congruence test. In saying, hey, this is very, very congruent, right? So just taking it in, seeing if we can bring it in. And in there we've got a kind of a sense, you can see here, this isn't adding up. I won't take your time for that, because this gives you a sense as to, yeah, this is actually truly a geometric object that is being expressed through multiple different modes, through over time. Does this move? Well, it looks like, to my mind, maybe, maybe not. Maybe, maybe not. I actually think if I was better at this, I could line it actually up. But I don't want to do that quite yet because I want to bring us to this video. At this point, he says, there's geometry in here. There's geometry in here. What's that geometry? And I want to get to that, because I find that's to be really, really important. So we've taken snapshots from 2 minutes of video. We've overlaid them. They haven't moved that much. And actually, if I was better at this, I might actually be able to line them up using those tools. So that's really important. I went ahead and I did that before just to make sure I could do something like that, and it was very, very consistent. So I want to now work through the drawing. So let's go back to here. This is my drawing I did of the image taken from whenever. I can't remember. I don't know when. Here is the drawing that I took from a recent still. not 100% sure as to what frame that is. So these are different frames. So that's, again, yet another congruence test. But we want to start drawing out the geometry. What's the geometry here? We know dots in a line now. We know that we can place this based on this. We can understand this through dots in a line. We can understand this placement through Dr. Lynne's video. And then we can understand this placement through the other dots in a line in a triangle kind of phenomena. I do want to show you one that showed up, dots in a line, for me when I was researching it. I found one that had a 30, 60, 90 triangle, very, very clear 30, 60, 90 triangle. And then it's set within golden ratio of a naturally occurring birthmark. And that kind of reminded me and says, hey, this feels very, very similar. So there's geometry in it. That's the line from the tape, which made me I love that. So what we'll do actually is we'll start using the same method, right? I will work with the center of each of these dots on the edge of this phrase, and I'll just draw the line through there, right? If you can see really closely, these dots sort of sit more on top of the line than these dots do. I'm going to apply the same technique. Like, you've seen me do this a number of times. I'm placing the center of the compass on the outside of that dot. I actually am not 100% if I'm on the outside or the center. This is just what I've been doing. And this gets me close enough to a congruence test that I say there's geometry in here. You, as someone who's going along with me in this transpersonal epistemological ritual, get to understand that there is, you get to make that discernment. That's part of the dreamwork ethic. But I would invite you to try this out yourself, to do the drawings with the center of the circle and the center of the dot on this side, and see how that feels. So now we've got the bisection experience happening. What is happening next? What's happening next? I want to orient my understanding with the golden ratio. Lo and behold, this is golden ratio. So let's go ahead and work with that side. So the first step of dividing any segment into the golden ratio, as you know now, is Vesica Pisces. So I'm just, like I said, just going to draw all the circles so we have them, because I think they're beautiful and relevant. Right? So now we're almost there. We can bisect that radius by going like this, by connecting these 2 points. But we need to draw the intersection point between that Vesica Pisces and somewhere on that circle. Somewhere on that circle is determined by a circle that is placed this way, which involves twice the radius. So we're going to just draw that here to here. And I'm actually going to continue this circle out so we can now golden ratio this whole experience, right? And isn't that beautiful? It lines up right there. I like doing the X so you can really get a sense of it as it intersects there. So now we have the placement of that circle, we have the placement of this dot, we have the placement of this dot. It goes without saying that these dots can actually be, the radius of these dots are determined by a meaningful ratio to the radius of this figure. And that's one of the other points of meaning here. So then we need to figure out what's going on here. Well, guess what? We're going to start bisecting. We're going to start bisecting this experience because that's the language of this geometry. So at some point, I just sort of go with what makes sense when I'm analyzing it. So we've got the bisection of this line here already. right? So that's there. And then what is going on with this? Well, I want to bisect it again. Actually, that's what it looks like in my other diagram. That's what it looks like to me, is that this dot right there is sitting on the bisection line. So once again, we'll just draw this circle. We're very, very close to done with our geometric demonstrations. And lo and behold, look at that. Isn't that incredible? And so the meaningful, let's just actually continue this down so you can really, really see, right? I'm going to build another vesica Pisces. We're just bisecting all the way down until we get to a place where, look at that. That bisection line describes the diameter of the dots perfectly. So the dots are set within, let's say, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8 the radius here. Then we need to demonstrate that this point and this point have meaningful relationships to this figure. And then we have perfectly described the geometry that Tom King saw on March 13th, 1997, exclaiming, "There's geometry in it." This is that geometry, which is rather incredible to me that it's taken a while to figure this out and to actually do the drawings. I haven't seen drawings of these before, but I was marked on my body with, let's say, the marks on the body, right? Like, and it took me 6 months, and the dream people had to come to me, teach me ruler and compass geometry over weeks. They came to me on the winter solstice on the 2nd, the next year. So that's 12 days later, after a series of dreams and instructions. They said, look at your body mark. It took me a day, actually, after the instructions and the very, very clear expression of this geometry, to actually figure out, hey, there's geometry in my thing. And then it took me a weeks afterwards to figure out it was present in others. So to say that it's to even think about applying ruler and compass geometry to these things is a relatively creative endeavor that I needed to be assisted in my dreams. But that's fine, because I'm relying on the precedent of Western math and philosophy through like Einstein, Descartes, Pythagoras, Euclid, John Dee, all these guys. They relied on dream people too to tell them geometry. So let's not feel bad. Let's just go with it and work with this geometry as the epistemological transpersonal ritual it is. And when you work with this geometry and you say, hey, there's geometry in here, and this is that geometry, and I can build it, you are working with the Pheonix energies and actually bringing literally and truly whatever energy is present within the Pheonix lights, whatever it wanted to communicate, it is now in resonance with your heart, mind, and soul through this ritual. That's what we're doing here and now. And so with that, I would just simply invite you, right before I complete this diagram, to contemplate what you would like to burn away and what you would like to emerge from the ashes. So for me, that is a society based on service to self, of exploitation of each other and the environment. Let's burn those things away so that we can build a society together based in love, peace, unity, consciousness, respect for self, other, the earth, for the benefit of ourselves, our community, our families, and the earth, on this vast community of beautiful beings living together. So let's actually emerge together as Pheonix reborn, as Pheonix rising, when we complete this. And just hold that sort of intention in your mind and heart, and we'll continue and see the potency, actually. And this can be another demonstration, is when you hold this sort of thing in your mind and heart as we complete this work, just be open and observe how that might shift your whole experience in the future, how this might shift our society if we tune into this together. So that can be a demonstration actually of the potency of geometry, is just by trying it out. This is science, actually. This isn't anything besides science, even though we may think of science as being isolated to waking phase, physical matter, reality. It's not. You're doing science right here, right now, with the fundamentals of Western math and philosophy. This is a sacred activity that we're doing together. So thank you for doing this. Thank you for holding your beautiful intentions. And let's continue. All right, so this placement is really interesting to me, right? So I want to figure out, and I go, oh, okay, actually, let's start. I know golden ratio's got to be somewhere in here. And lo and behold, right? So I go from here to here, right? That's one of my clues. And I go, oh, actually from here, right, to here, right? So if we now from here, right, to there. So actually, right, so we need to then be able to extend this line in golden ratio. So actually, let's start doing this construction so we really do have a sense of it. I'm going to work with this as my center, and I'm going to do a little bit more creative thing because I'm at the edge of my paper. So I am going to, how am I going to do that? I drew a circle around it so then I can make a perpendicular line, because that's what it looks like to me. Right? There's a lot of Vesica Pisces, and I think that's beautiful. So now, perpendicular line from there to there. Right? So now we're really, really close. Actually, we're like so close. We're like so close. I'll just draw that in a little bit closer. So here we've got the we've got the perpendicular line based on here. That's there, and it's sort of floating above that line in characteristic of the Dot-Signal line of the Pheonix light. We know that from here, we know that it is in golden ratio from here to here. So this is enough to prove that this placement and understand where that placement is. I'm actually really curious now, since I didn't fully do this work before the thing. Do we get another intersection point here, right? Like wouldn't that be interesting to really pull that up and actually and truly, right? So when we're working with the existing line, right? That bisection point here, we're pulling that down here, and we see that being placed right there. Isn't that interesting? That's so beautiful, right? So then we have the construction method. For placement of here, we create a perpendicular line from that place, and we take the circle from this bisection point, which we drew in order to establish that point. We draw it down here, and then we can place that dot right there. The final dot here is really interesting, right? So let's actually do something similar, right? Let's actually do something similar, keeping this as the center, right? And now let's just extend it somewhere in the middle here to give ourselves a clue as to, oh, that's perfect. I love when that happens, where it's just so close. We actually have to extend this line. So right now I'm trying to figure out, how do we place this dot? Like, what happens here? Where is that being placed, right? Like, I'm now testing meaningful places of intersection, right? Like of the, right? So now you can start to actually, ooh, that's gorgeous. So you see these three, we've got a line here, a circle, we've got a line here, a circle, and we've got a circle which we could theoretically draw a line here into. This ruler now is tangenting 3 of the construction circles used to place these dots. And if we just draw a line through those 3 circles, we have the intersection point there. But we need to figure out, so now we have this line, which is clear and distinct, right? Interestingly enough, right, like if we start going like this, right? Oh, wow, actually, there's more coherence here. We take, as you can see, a golden ratio between, if we take this line, this dot, and drop it straight down here, if we take all these dots, drop it straight down here, and we have this dot here, it's already describing golden ratio. So if we know how to do parallel lines, perpendicular lines, we know how to do the placement of that. But we actually have to figure out how far along this line we need to place the dot. And I mean, like, we can actually just kind of test that out to see, hey, really, like, if we're doing that, we take, let's see, this circle, these circles, right, from here to here to here to here, and we know this circle from the placement of this dot. We can then extend this line from here to here into the golden ratio, which will produce the placement of that dot. Or, I mean, the other thing that I found was really cool is if I take this, if we go like this, right, like that kind of produces almost, that's actually not right. How is that dot placed? We go, because we need to place it from here to here. Let's actually go ahead and draw that out so we can see that, because this is really, I think this is the placement. This is the placement along that line, like that, right there. So we would drop this down. Let's actually go ahead and do that. So then, okay, perfect. So now we'll have another placement here. Where did that come from? Yeah, this line here. Perfect. So this is a relatively complicated graphic. We have these 4 here that were pretty easily placed, right? So we took we drew the Vesica Pisces, we bisected the line. We then divided that radius in the golden ratio, and we found the placement of this dot. Then we bisected the other radius. Then we bisected again to find the placement of that dot. Then we bisected it again into the 8th to get the diameter of all the dots. So then we drew a perpendicular line through this point here, all the way down here. So then we found the placement of this dot by extending, by drawing a circle whose radius was from this point to this intersection bisection point down here. So that dot is placed in that way. Then we found the placement of this dot, which was the trickiest, through drawing a line perpendicular to this line that cut through these, that tangented these construction circles. Then so this describes where along the line, that sort of the line placement relative to this line, but we need to figure out how far this one was. So then we took this bisection point, dropped it down onto that line, and then extended the ratio from here to here into the golden ratio, which then gives us, that's really it, which then gives us the placement of that dot. All of these are the radius, the diameter is equal to that. That's what it looks like to me. I think there will be particular meaning in the variance of them. But this really does show a sense of clear and direct placement on all of these things. It shows a geometric construction here that's consistent in terms of the geometric language between the Pheonix lights, right? So let's just actually now wrap up. So thank you for being here. I walked you through the geometry demonstration. Please do work with this. Look at it. Draw it yourself. You'll likely find that I'm not doing it right exactly. They're with these geometries in consistency with crop circle geometry or these body mark geometries. It's very, very obvious that they're working with these principles of golden ratio, bisection, straight line, ruler, compass, but that they are characteristically deviating from that in meaningful ways. The fact that these dots are not placed center to center of intersection points, but tangenting them, means that you have to understand and draw in the bisection or golden ratio grids. You have to do that work to say, I know what the pattern could be. I see how this is deviating slightly from them. So we've gone through it. We've seen the geometry. This is the geometry. There will be meaning in this angle. There will be meaning in this angle. There'll be meaning in this angle. There'll be meaning in the different intersection points, the points of coherence. This seems very, 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 very important to me since it is sort of based off of that. I assume that this was the center of the line, but I feel that this here is a sort of other point of center of gravity. All right. So, like I said, we've seen this geometry here. This is a body mark that reminds me of that, a 30, 60, 90 triangle. We've seen geometry expressed in Dr. Lynne's videos. And let me just take you back. See, look at that. We've got geometry expressed in dots in a line, that sort of stuff. So let's just, let's go back now. Let's just really quickly review the split screen, because this should really drive it home to you that something is going on that's extremely geometric. And let's just click around. These are 4 videos of the same phenomena happening, stabilized and synced up in time. This is done by Tom King. Thank you for all this beautiful work. But you can see the immense regularity of the geometry. Going through the congruence test with the one up here to the top, understanding how much or how little these have moved over the minutes of the video, and being able to actually see with your eyes, right? Use your eyes. This is one of the clues or one of the inspirations here. Flares just don't fall like that, which is very reminiscent of another statement people have made around 2001 about buildings, right? These have a sort of quality that you yourself can discern. You can see that equality, you can see that regularity. And if you took the time, which you have already, to understand it geometrically and perform the congruence test between frame to frame to frame, you'll see that this is a geometric object falling, or not falling, floating above the sky, announcing its presence. There's no way we can lie about this and say these are flares unless you can provide demonstration of an A10 warthog sending out flares and having 4 different people video it in this way that is capable of producing these congruence tests in geometry that has a sort of consistency with the geometric language of anomalous body marks as well as UAPs. I've analyzed dozens of other UAPs that have similar geometry. And so really at this point, the presence of geometry in and of itself is a priori. That's before any amount of experiential or empirical research, the presence of this geometry a priori is a meaningful communication. Regardless of if this turns out to be a hoax or not, the geometry in itself is meaningful, intentional, and intelligent. This is what we can deduce through the congruence test, and therefore we can see, right, that at some point the debunking doesn't matter because we're dealing with geometry, and that actually the debunking needs to step up and provide actual examples of this geometry expressed through flares or airplanes or something like that, primarily because we are able to describe the same geometric language across multiple videos of multiple photographs over multiple periods of time that is truly associated with a geometric language that is expressing itself through non-harmful marks on the body that have emerged in association with extraterrestrial and non-human intelligence and dreams. So there's something actually truly and deeply going on that is expressive of intentional and intelligent geometric communication. Thank you for going on the journey to explore this with me. And with that, actually, recap, I'll just move into a little bit of reflection. So thank you for reflecting on this with me. Thank you for being present with me in this journey of exploring the Pheonix lights. So this is a strong and direct metaphor to invite the rebirth of something out of ashes, right? This is an expression of immortality, of being able to go into the flames and be burnt alive, perhaps, to reemerge much more powerfully. This is what that message is for me personally. It reminds me of memories, let's say, or fantasies or connections with perhaps the book burnings of the past or the martyr in flame archetype. I'm thinking of the life and times of Giordano Bruno, who was burnt alive in Italy because he believed that other planets existed and that there could be life on those planets, right? He was burnt alive for beliefs like that. And the sense here is that when we have such clear and direct demonstration of geometry associated with a place name called Pheonix, I can only deduce, right, through this transpersonal epistemological ritual based in dreamwork, that the dream message for us here and now is to allow that which needs to be burnt so that we can emerge together as the Pheonix, beautiful, immortal, transmutating of these evils that we have experienced. That's what I would say is the message here. And if you would like to explore this message further, I would invite you to relate directly with the energies and intelligences behind the geometry by simply doing this transpersonal epistemological ritual of ruler and compass geometry, which is central to the Western dialogues of math and science. Just do what's the foundation of our science, like what the foundation of our culture, even our intellectual culture recommends you do, which is ruler and compass, construction and analysis of these things. Do that yourself. You'll relate to the intelligences. You'll relate to the geometries. You may have dreams, intuitions, and feelings. You may have recollections occur. This is common with geometry. You may have engagements with non-human intelligences through your dreams that lead to world-changing discoveries and understandings. And I'm saying this not as something ridiculous or outlandish, but actually because this is the history of Western mathematics, as I've shown you just by looking at that table of contents of the article of the history of mysticism in mathematics, right? The history of mathematics is the history of mysticism. The history of mysticism in this context involves, one, the recollection of who you are, right? the recollection of who you are. You remember, you understand, you encounter this geometric intuition in the world out there through these ruler and compass constructions. You encounter that geometric intuition because you are remembering something from the world of forms, as Plato might say. But this is the level of soul. So you're doing that when you're recollecting or identifying geometry within these figures. The next thing you're doing, you're engaging or you're building a rapport with the non-human intelligences. And I'm not saying what they are. Personally, I think they might be blobs of light or intelligent geometries in and of themselves as such. Or they might be extraterrestrial tall grays who psionically communicate with us through dreams. We're not really sure, and it doesn't necessarily matter. The fact is that you can relate to this collective of individuals and people that have related to our mathematicians, like Plato, like Descartes, like Ramanujan, who have communicated geometric understanding. By going through this work and understanding the geometry present within these anomalous phenomena, you are building rapport and inviting connection in with that stream of intelligence that has woven itself into the history of Western culture, of philosophy and mathematics and science. So I thank you for doing that. And I would just like to take a moment yet again to invite you to tune into the energy of the Pheonix, to allow that which needs to be burnt to burn. And if it is in your possibility, if it is in the realm of capability within responsible social action as a citizen, please do move us forward by burning that which needs to be burnt so that something new can emerge. I say that this society that has ignored such beautiful geometry has many things that need to be set aside in order for this new earth to be born. And thank you for doing that work. You'll find it to be non-harmful and in alignment with the highest good. That is the principle, that is the intention, that is the invitation here and now. That any action this inspires, that any understanding this inspires is according to the principle of non-harm, in alignment with the highest benefit for you, your family, our community, and the earth. So thank you for going on this journey. Thank you for opening your heart, mind, and soul to this geometry. And may you join the Pheonix reborn.